imagine their past, present, and future coming together any time and place that they gathered, just think about what they could share. The tales of our human experience mean the most when they flow in the direction from the oldest to the youngest. Sharing experiences which connect two different centuries of life lived in and around Owensboro, well, that's an opportunity that presents itself now as a thing much too valuable to miss. Listening as our seniors share their recollections lets us hear what life was like then and allows their stories to become part of who we are and who we will be. Recently, some of our dearest friends at the Monday Activity Center sat down for interviews, sharing their stories and themselves. Theatre Workshop of Owensboro is honored to help bring their recollections together, assisting the powerful connection between storytellers and listeners as we let their memories speak for themselves and evoke in us what they will. Remembering Elizabeth Monday herself is the best way to begin a tribute to the meaningfulness of active senior lives fostered by the Monday Center. Theatre Workshop's own matriarch, Donna Risley, fondly recalls knowing her as a colleague and as a friend.
That was a pleasure, and that's worth sharing. Nobody could fill her shoes. She was a unique person, cute as a button, feisty little thing. She quite often asked me to take her car and run an errand for her, or something. It took you a while to take her car anywhere, because she had to have 3 pillows and a catalog stuck in the seat. And then it was pushed up as far as it would go, so that she could see out the windshield. And she'd drive everywhere. Her big thing that she made all the time, that was sour cream coffee cakes. When we'd have things going on over there, she'd always make some coffee cakes to serve. She'd take the seniors on out-of-town trips. They'd go on chartered bus. She did some nice programs. Well, she would the night before. She'd go into the kitchen down there, and she'd stay up half the night, and she'd make some coffee cakes. So then she'd have the bus stop. She knew all the routes. She knew exactly where they were. And so she knew there was a restaurant at such and such as the point up the road, and you ain't got a busload of old people. You need to know where the restrooms are. And so she would tell the bus, pull off now, and she'd unload the buses and she'd take them into the restaurant. And I know we loved her as she deserved to be loved. But I know that there were restaurant owners that dreaded seeing that little old lady show up. Because she'd unload a busload of all old people needing to get to the bathrooms very quickly, so nobody else could get to the bathroom except for the senior citizens from Owensboro. Then she would go ahead and they'd sit down at the tables and she'd say, before we do anything, would you please bring us some plates, please, and some forks and some napkins? And then she'd drag out her coffee cakes. And she'd serve everybody coffee cakes that she had brought. They weren't going to make a nickel. And then she'd come back and she'd do it the next time. And she was such a unique personality that, you know, those were the men, when they were recovering from their nervous breakdowns, they'd tell their wives, it was that woman from Owensboro.
93 years of life gives Edna Boswell the perspective to recall an interesting childhood, a rural life that instilled a close-knit, faithful appreciation for family. She also shares the memory of realizing when being an adult had to mean not returning to her parents' side.
Well, I guess I was mischievous. Grandpa died when I was 4 years old. Mama said she didn't know what they would have done with me if Grandpa had lived much longer than that because he wouldn't let them punish me at all. My sister Beulah had died before I was born, but I got to wear all her clothes. Some of them I liked and some of them I didn't, but anyway, I wore her white dress to be baptized in, and she had a red hat. I hated that red hat. But Mama told me to wear it, and I did. Everywhere we went, despised it. Then, when I was 10 years old, Daddy fixed me a hoe, a little hoe, and taught me how to use it. So from then on, I became Daddy's helper. My dad was an ordained Baptist minister, a very staunch Baptist minister. He married a lot of people, performed a lot of weddings. One afternoon, we were going from Hawesville home, and this car came up behind us, blowing a horn. Well, they passed and pulled over and stopped. So Daddy went past them, and here they come again, blowing the horn, and passed and pulled over and stopped. Mama said, "Charlie, I think they want to see you for something." So he stopped and got out. A young man got out of the car, came back, and said, "We want to get married." Daddy said, "Here on the side of the road, or you want to follow me up to the house?" Come to find out, there were two couples, and they all wanted to get married. So they came in the house, and Daddy started the ceremony. Instead of saying "I do," every one of them said, "Yes, sir. Yes, sir." Another wedding that stands out in my memory. They came and we went out. Daddy said, "Well, all right, Lucille, you get out of the car, and I'll just marry you." "Don't you want to get out?" "No." "Lucille, do you want to get married?" "Yes." So he said, "Well, Jessie, get back in the car with her. I can marry you just as good in the back seat of this car as I can standing down here." Well, it worked, and they lived together till one of them died. I was still Daddy's little helper till I was 18 years old. Then I went to Owensboro and got a job. In 1944, in September, I met this young man, and I didn't like him at all. Ralph and I still dated. We married December the 31st, 1945. Judy was born while we lived here the first time. Joe was born after we moved back here. In 1952, the polio epidemic was really bad, and Judy was sick. In the night, she woke up screaming with her back and her neck hurting. So we put her in the hospital here, and she continued to get worse. Dr. Bickle, you remember, came in. Of course, he had had polio. He said to our doctor, "Why don't you take her to Louisville, and you tell Dr. Little that I said to bring her." So she was in Louisville 6 months. We brought her home 6 months later. My dad had had a stroke, and Mama said, "You'll have to come home and take care of us." I said, "I can't do that, Mama." "Well, you have to." I said, "No, I don't, I can't, and I won't." Well, she said, "Why not?" I said, "We're going to be bringing Judy home in a few days now." "Well, they can just leave her there and let the nurses take care of her." But my dad died and was buried the day before we were to bring her home. Though to top it all off, I said, "I haven't been feeling very well." And she said, "I haven't been feeling very well either." And I said, "Well, Mama, I don't think you're going to have a baby, and I am." I was pregnant with Gerald, and he was born on the 28th of August, and he was one of the best babies I've ever seen in my life.
Raymond Lowry's earliest memories were of the 1937 flood in rural Hancock County and a hard life there. But fitting in at a big river city like Owensboro wasn't a lot easier. Even a short stay in Louisville when he was declined for military service was too long for his comfort. Eventually, Raymond found various ways to get the most he could from being in Owensboro. He believes that life is about more than getting by. It's about having it made.
Acres. It's all covered under. We almost got drowned ourselves, you know. We got out of the wagon and had to go up on a hill, like there was a barn up there. I wasn't nothing but just a kid, you know. Could have got drowned myself. But lucky the Lord blessed us to get up there just in time. That water came down. It got our old log cabin house where we lived. It looked like it was going to wash our shed off the foundation. That river water was raging. Whole river had erupted. And it was bad on in down to Owensboro. Everybody got flooded out. That was the worst flood too in a long time. My people, them that didn't die, they all came to Owensboro. And I was the last one living up there. And I was missing my mother and my brothers and my grandma and all of them. I'd go down there to visit them on the bus and on the train that ran through here. I'd go back. Didn't like it. I said, no, I don't think I want to stay. Owensboro's too fast for me. I'd go back. Finally getting to where farm work was starting to play out. All that industry come in. Farmers be, they'd be renting out the farms, because they'd be gone to make money. They make more money at that aluminum plant in Lewisport. They got copper mills and other mills up there. Now, if they raise anything, they got the people living on the farm to raise it. Before I left up there, I had to go to Lewisport to go to school, because the old school they had up there, it was old and it just fell down. And the school there in Lewisport only taught up to the 8th grade. Then they said, well, Raymond, you passed. You gotta get on the bus. And they had a school that would be going from Hallsville to Owensboro. They'd be coming over here. The Western High, at the time you couldn't go to the white schools. It was segregated. It was still in the late 1940s. Everything was still too fast for me. They knew I couldn't catch on, didn't have the right proper clothes to wear. And I said, now I'm not coming down here to be made fun of. I went 1 week. That last Friday, they weren't gonna see me no more. I said, see y'all, see you Monday. And I never looked back. I decided, later on I said, well, I'm gonna come to Owensboro and stay with my mom. In 1955, I went to Louisville. The Army, called me to go with 8 of us. The rest of them made it but me. No Raymond, got a bad heart, flat feet, and overweight. Stayed up there about a week. They said, you can go on home, can't use you. I said, thank the Lord. First time I'd been anywhere like that in my life. I can't survive in no big city like that. I barely could survive in Owensboro until I got used to everything and got to where I started fitting in. Over the years though, I tell you what, I had jobs and more income coming in. I had more money than anybody did in my whole family. Proudest job I had was when I worked for Central Bank and Trust. A lot of people didn't know I took care of all 6 of them myself. They said, now how can you do it and still work for the city? I was wearing a sanitation department uniform. I was on the night shift, see. I work at night for them and I work for the bank during the day. I said, I know I've got it made. I really got it made. A lot of people didn't like me on the counter, but I didn't worry about it. They said, you're disgracing the family wearing that sanitation department uniform. I'd be riding my new lawnmower. And I said, how you like me now?
Dorothy Smithson is well known locally for genealogy. She remembers likely owing her first innocent kiss to her mother's influence. She also recalls the toll World War II took on those in the community through the service of her brother Russell and her future husband David. Her father's hospitality and her mother's propriety came to represent for her Owensboro's resilient gratitude. You may notice in your program that Nikki Knopfsinger is supposed to read for Dorothy Smithson, but she called in sick. And I spent all day trying to find another woman, but use your imaginations. Pretend that I'm a beautiful woman. Well, do the best you can. We were going to have a 6th grade play. Our play was going to be Sleeping Beauty, and 2 of us had not been given a part. I'd not been given a part, and Violet had not been given a part. Violet had beautiful long curls, The two parts that were still waiting for someone was a moderator and Sleeping Beauty. Well, you know, everyone thought that Sleeping Beauty was going to be the long, beautiful curls. I was Sleeping Beauty. I told you to use your imagination. I think it might have been, no wait, yeah, I think it might have been because my mother was the president of the PTA too. I think it might have been, well, you know, when the prince woke me up, he would just lean over. But when we performed, he gave me a kiss on the cheek. Thought that was probably my first kiss. One day during World War II, you know, you never got a telephone call at school. But I got a phone call. It was in Latin class, which was about 12 or 14 people. Of course, I walked to the office scared to death. When I picked up the phone, it was my music teacher. She came to my house and taught piano, and she said she couldn't be there then. I was relieved. You know, I didn't care if she'd be there or not. But when I went back upstairs and opened the door, I don't believe anyone had said anything at all while I was gone. And I walked in and I looked around and I said, oh, no, nothing's wrong. Well, you know what they thought? They thought my brother had been wounded or killed or something. When the war ended, my brother was on his way to the invasion of Japan. And he had just gone through the Straits of Gibraltar. And they just brought him straight home. And my husband was loading his LST for the invasion of Japan. And they had stopped them once, because that's when they had dropped the first bomb. And Japan didn't do anything, so they started filling up again. And you know what I remember about World War II is almost every house had a little flag in it. And they had a blue star if someone was there and a gold star if someone had died. Everyone knew someone who had been hurt. So I don't know how my mother stood it. My brother didn't write to us for a long, long time. It was after some big battle, you know, and I got a letter from some boy that I didn't recognize the name. And he told me, your brother is in the bed next to me and he's doing all right. And it was still a long time. He had combat fatigue, frozen feet, and, you know, a lot of things. My husband said that the only battle that he was ever in was at Okinawa. And that's when the kamikazes, you know, came in. And he said that he saw one when he was under the deck, I guess, and he said, I looked up and there was one coming. And it looked like it was just coming right down our hatch. He said he had to go up to get to his gun. He said he fell down several times getting up there. And he said when he got up there, the kamikaze was way up and his gun would only go that high. Well, it hit the boat next to them. At the 50th reunion, I think they said that probably 250 people were killed. When World War II ended, everybody went downtown. During the war, Owensboro was full of soldiers, and you know, you tried to bring them into your home and give them something to eat. And I remember one Thanksgiving, my dad went out to see if there was someone on the street that he could say, come and have Thanksgiving dinner with us. So he came in, but he had a bottle with him that my mother didn't want, so she took it away from him. But she gave it back, I think, when he left. Dorothy Smithson. Longtime educator Judy Dixon reflects on the compassion that surrounded her first job, the coolest thing about her old neighborhood, and a road trip memory that lingers. Those experiences had something wonderful in common, her parents.
My very, very first job. I was 12, and we had a family that was associated with our church. Dad had a lot of people that didn't necessarily go to our church, but that contributed. And there was a family that had a child who had cerebral palsy. She was 4 years old, and I was 12, and her mom was a nurse at the hospital. And they asked me, they asked my parents, if I could babysit her. I cannot believe anybody would do that anymore. But they lived on Venable Avenue, and I made $12.50 a week, $2.50 a day. This is my coming of age story. I fell in love with this child, madly, passionately in love. She couldn't speak, she could not walk. It was like it was all locked inside. Her dad was a carpenter and had made all these special tricycles for her and furniture. I just played with her. That's all I knew to do. That year my goal was, well, there was a doll at Newberry's 10-cent store that I wanted. One of those Hattie Play Pals that's child-sized. And that was my goal. So I got my paycheck and I went down, or pay cash, went down and put that doll on layaway. So every week I would go and put part of my check on layaway, and when I got the doll out, I took one look at her and I gave her to Jackie. Well, Jackie died in about 85 or so. I kept her 4 years. And the day after the funeral, I drove down there, and there stood her mother holding the doll. And I still have her upstairs. That was my first job. I lived on McCulloch Avenue, and there was like a little grocery store down there. It was called Winkler's. You would not have this happen now, I don't think. My parents were both working because Dad always had to have another job besides preaching. We would go to this little store down there, and they had a little diner area. And my brother and I could get lunch and just sign the check. My friends thought this was the absolutely coolest thing, because Mom and Dad were always scared we weren't going to get enough to eat, and they wouldn't let us cook at home because they were convinced we'd burn the house down. And so we just go eat. I look back and where could you? Do you think your kids could go to Jay's Diner and sign the check? And Mother and Dad would pick it up on Friday when they got paid? So, yeah, that was kind of a neat tradition. My mother had a sister that lived in New Jersey, and we would ride a Greyhound bus. It would take 3 days to get from Kentucky to New Jersey. You'd go to the bus station, and you know they weren't stations like they are now. We'd have layovers there and go into these shower rooms. The women would go with the women, and they would hand you a towel, and you had to pay them. Of course, Mother would make me take a shower with her because she didn't want something to happen to me. And then we'd get back on the bus. Later, they'd pass out pillows, and it'd take us 3 or 4 days to get to New Jersey. So whenever I smell diesel, I think of my mom. To this day.
Tom Vitito shares from his diverse experiences as a teacher, police officer, educational television advocate, and beyond. He speaks for a generation of local friends that largely stayed in Owensboro to return the same small town sensibility that fostered them. His outlook on their potential in later life draws from very familiar inspiration. Elizabeth Mundy.
I'm the last Vitito in Owensboro. My dad was George Robert. My mother's name was Mary Kelly. I was very lucky. My mother was the secretary at one time at Owensboro High School, where it is now, to the principal. My brother was a junior in high school, and where the Owensboro Public Library is now was our doctor's office, Dr. Haynes Barr. Mother went to the doctor and said, I have something wrong with my stomach. I have cancer of the stomach. Dr. Barr said, Mary Kelly, let me look at it. And he said, I tell you what, in 7 months, if you will name it, I will deliver it. So the family nickname, because there was such an age span between my brother and myself, they nicknamed me Tommy Tumor. Spoiled rotten. I had one grandfather that had a business in town, and every time you go see him, he'd give you a $1 bill. So I make it a point to try to see him every 2 or 3 times a day. Figured that out real quick. So Dad said, you're wearing it out, Tom. I went to Longfellow Elementary School. That's where the new gym for Owensboro High School is now. Then I went to Southern and Owensboro High School. We were the class of '64. At the time we graduated, we were the first of the baby boomers. And our principal, Joe Brown, great guy, baccalaureate and graduation said we were the worst damn class Owensboro High School has ever had. They were damn glad to get rid of us. Now at the same time, you have to remember that was the Vietnam War. I had a principal appointment to West Point, and I was going to make a career out of it. I didn't pass the test, and so I started teaching. I was wavered. We were very lucky we didn't lose more classmates than Nam. I'm a 4th generation Vitito who lived in Owensboro, grew up, went to college here, graduate school, postgraduate school. All that I've done right here in Owensboro, Kentucky, which is extremely unique. I don't have to leave my home community. All of us have turned out well, you know. I'm very proud of the classmates. We were 460 some odd students in our class. We would hang out at the Dairy Drive-In or the Big Dipper or Jerry's, or there's a place called the Comet down on the west side of town. I had friends that lived in East City, East County, and I didn't care if they went to Davis County or Catholic High. I enjoyed that. That's rare unless you're in a small town. So many of them are doctors and lawyers and own major businesses now in Owensboro. People talk about all the things we don't have, and yet Owensboro has the friendliest bunch of people. Owensboro is still unique. It's a small town with big town ideas. It's not how big it is. It's how well we want to be. How good we are. We have problems, but we don't have all big city problems. I knew Mrs. Monday quite well. Over on Sherm Road, there was an apartment complex. Mrs. Monday lived in one apartment, and we lived in the apartment across the breezeway from Mrs. Monday. We'd see her every morning, 6:30 or 7. You'd see Mrs. Monday. Well, one morning, about 6 o'clock, Elizabeth Monday was standing on her front balcony of her apartment. I hollered, "Mrs. Monday, how you doing?" "Doing great, Tom." I said, "What are you doing up so early?" She said, "I just got in." I went to the Monday Center to volunteer. Robin Nagley had been a student of mine. Robin went and took Mrs. Monday's place and was there some odd years. I'd retired and I said, "Robin, I'm bored." So I went down to volunteer. She said, "Can you come in on Monday?" This was Sunday when I called. She said, "I'm leaving. You want the job?" And I said, "No." 7.5 years later, after being the executive director of the Monday Center, I've been retired for 3 years now. I'm getting a little antsy about doing something. I hope I've made a difference in some people's lives in Owensboro because they've made a lot of difference to me. So many people have been so good to me and helped me throughout the years. I hope I can repay that. That's kind of on my bucket list. I still haven't done all the things I want to yet. Ask me 10 years from now.
An hourglass has long been a common image for the passage of time. If our time of life in and around Owensboro is that kind of hourglass, then our memories are the flowing grains that we present to one another. This is our time, and these are the moments that we must share. In a way, what we've been doing by coming together here is to turn our hourglass on its side. We've paused our rush through time to appreciate how the experiences of these friends show us that we are each unique and yet share common ground, like sand as far back or as far ahead as the eye can see. We have come to know about these people for who they individually are. At the same time, they have shown us unique reflections of what it means to be a child, a friend, a spouse, a parent, and an elder. These have been their stories, and a reminder that we all have stories. Let's consider that our stories can mean as much to someone as these have meant to us. Time will surely pass, but the telling of our time is just as surely up to us. And now we must reset the hourglass, commence the rush. But let's all do so as storytellers. Thank you.